Once full of life, Pompeii was one of the largest cities in the world. The ancient city of grandeur witnessed a disaster that brought about its end through the overflowing population. Now it is a city frozen in time, covered by a layer of ash from the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. And that makes passing among the ruins of Pompeii almost impossible without a sense of melancholy. Thanks to a new discovery, the city's somber nature has become even more poignant. Archaeologists excavating the ruins unearthed a room with a dark and compelling story, alongside many other artifacts. But before we turn to the incredible discoveries made in the area, let's take a look at the inner side of this disaster. Around 79 CE, while the people of Pompeii were engaged in their daily routines, Mount Vesuvius erupted in a massive explosion that leveled the city. Although the volcano had given signs of an impending eruption, the locals were too primitive to interpret them. Indeed, they thought volcanoes were simply ordinary mountains. Perhaps they had not yet learned what a volcanic eruption meant. Therefore, they were caught unprepared for the eruption and had no clue what to do. While a very few escaped and survived, thousands of people remained behind and died by being engulfed alive in the flames, and the city was eventually buried under the ashes of the volcanic years. Pompeii was not the only place to suffer from the destructiveness of the volcano. The nearby city of Herculaneum was similarly buried beneath ash. The horrendous event in ancient Rome was not something to be quickly forgotten. Nature, perhaps aware of this, preserved what happened in order for archaeologists to look back and understand the lives of the Pompeian people. We also owe thanks to Domenico Fontana for exploring the ruins and giving the whole world the opportunity to uncover them. For some time, archaeologists had been working in the settlement area just outside the boundaries of Pompeii, known as Civiltai. Colleagues had begun working at that place over a century ago, which accelerated the discovery of some noteworthy finds. The most important discovery in that area, considered as such by researchers, was a villa that provided tremendous information about its former inhabitants. In the villa, where excavations have been ongoing since 1907, archaeologists succeeded in discovering 15 different rooms. Each of these rooms fell into one of two categories: living spaces and agricultural or working areas. As you might expect, the living spaces were for general use, while the agricultural section was for work. Researchers believe that wine or oil production took place in the agricultural part. The Civiltai, the villa, is fascinating in many aspects. However, there was a major problem. The area had been plundered by looters who opened secret tunnels to steal valuable artifacts. That unfortunate situation forced archaeologists to prioritize the excavations in Civiltai. Although having to work in a place like that was far from ideal, the results were extremely fascinating. Also, the discovery of frescoes stolen in the 1970s provided motivation to the researchers. In the last few years, a series of remarkable discoveries have been made, but none quite as extraordinary as the one announced in November 2021. This find was amazing not only for its exceptional nature, but also because the area tells a tragic story that had often been overlooked in history. The complex where the room was found proved to be a highly productive archaeological zone. Although many questions still remain unanswered, experts believe the villa once belonged to a prominent member of Pompeii's society. Among the villa's most impressive finds were animal remains discovered in late 2018. The remains turned out to be those of a donkey and pigs, and also a horse equipped with gear and harnesses. The fact that the horse had been prepared in this way seemed to imply that someone was about to mount it at the moment of the eruption. The horse was one of 3 found inside the villa. 2 others had been found earlier, though one was in very poor condition and only its legs survived the eruption intact. Those 3 horses were indisputably among the most important finds. Because they were found alongside a number of other objects, the horses' quality and the rich iron and bronze harnesses suggested they belonged to a noble breed. The method the archaeologists used to restore the horse's shape was quite interesting. They filled the hardened ash layer surrounding it with a liquid, and when this ash layer hardened, they could see the body's exact shape and dimensions. Massimo Ossana, director of the Pompeii Archaeological Park, said this was an extremely rare and important discovery. All three horses, with their majestic size and the quality of their gear, must have belonged to the most noble kind.
The discovery of those two men was undoubtedly fascinating, but the findings did not stop there. In August 2017, within the Porta Sarno necropolis, near the main gates opening to Pompeii city, remains of a freed slave were found in a tomb. The man's hair and bones were surprisingly well preserved. It appears the man had died long before the eruption, hence the tomb partially preserved his remains. Shortly thereafter, on the coast of Herculaneum, the neighboring town destroyed in the eruption, archaeologists found broken remains of a man believed to be 40 to 45 years old. They concluded the victim died while emerging from the water, seeking help. In March 2021, a magnificent chariot decorated with metal inlays was found, astonishingly well preserved despite the century-old disaster. Surviving the eruption was a feat in itself, but remaining intact for so long was something entirely different. And we must not forget that looters had visited the site frequently. The vehicle was covered with bronze and tin reliefs featuring the love god and water nymphs. 4 large iron wheels must have made it extremely heavy. Perhaps it had been pulled by the horses discovered earlier. In previous excavations, other chariots had been found, but this one was quite different. Usually such finds are very functional and simple. Meanwhile, the elaborate decorations on this chariot indicated it was a highly important item. Researchers suggest the vehicle was used in weddings or procession ceremonies. It should be noted that even before the looting, the room did not contain a lavish object considered a sign of wealth. So why was it so significant? In fact, what made it important was its simplicity. Apparently, this room had once been used to house slaves. That explains why it was decorated in such a modest and plain way. Slaves made up a huge part of the population of Pompeii at the time of its destruction. About 1/5 of the Roman Empire were slaves. And the time has now come for their stories to be heard. In a press statement from the Pompeii Archaeological Park, Gabriel Jagel, the name may vary, said, "This is one of the most exciting discoveries I have made in my life as an archaeologist. Don't be fooled by the absence of tangible treasures. The real treasure here is the human experience. This room is a unique time capsule bearing witness to the lives of the most vulnerable members of an ancient society." The room covered an area of 16 square meters, contained few belongings, and the walls showed no signs of decoration or carving. Its wholly dark condition was striking, as well as sad. Sunlight only entered through a small opening at the top of the wall. Life must have been extremely hard for those who lived here. Just as they recast the horses with plaster, archaeologists did the same for the wooden items, revealing the room's appearance at the moment of the eruption. In the room, there were 3 beds, 2 slightly more than 1.5 meters long, the other about 1.5 meters. All 3 were made of wood and ropes, each draped with covers. The smallest of the 3 indicated a child's bed, suggesting the room housed an entire family. Of course, their living conditions were harsh, but every detail was profoundly meaningful. Archaeologists found a closed wooden box in which, after long effort, they discovered cloth and metal objects, appearing to be parts of harnesses. This suggested that the people living in this room might have been responsible for the splendor of the chariot found in the villa. Next to the wooden box, the archaeologists discovered a series of vessels near the beds and at the sides of the room. The inhabitants likely used them to store their belongings and food. Among the remains were also kitchen utensils and similar tools. The cramped and uncomfortable appearance of the room deeply captured Gabriel Jagel's attention. In his press statement, the archaeologist admitted he could not hide his emotions, saying the room had a striking atmosphere.
He seemed very pleased to recount the story of the slaves who had lived there. For too long, history has treated the people writing it as the protagonists. Here we have a window into the real lives of the extras. In the room, whose story is long to tell, archaeological research continues. We generally have very little information about the oppressed members of ancient societies, and discoveries like this offer a chance to correct that. While their masters enjoyed every privilege, slaves' only luxury could afford was survival. The ruins of Pompeii reveal much about how life in this doomed city looked before it disappeared from the surface of the earth. What people ate, what ceremonies they attended. In short, every part of daily life was here. The discovery of this room revealed the story of people that history tends to forget. After finding the slave room, Italian Ministry of Culture released a statement. This incredible discovery in Pompeii shows that the site, one of the world's most famous tourist attractions, is not only a World Heritage Site, but also a place where research is actively carried out and new technologies are used. Thanks to these important finds, our knowledge of the daily lives of Pompeii, especially social groups even today little known, has been enriched. Pompeii represents a unique model of research worldwide. The city of Pompeii is in many ways strikingly different from other cities of its time. Pompeii really evokes a sense of melancholy in us. We can only imagine the moments when its residents faced sudden and terrifying deaths following a natural disaster. Still, nature accepted that we would leave things behind, and centuries later, we had the opportunity to learn about the lives of these people. Pompeii, with the new directions it continues to release into the world, continues to surprise the world day by day. As Massimo Ossana stated, the past never stays entirely in the past. What are your thoughts about Pompeii, one of the most famous ancient cities in the world? If you have had the chance to visit it, we'd be happy to hear about your experience. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.